to the Convince Me podcast, where we're on a mission to convince you to step outside of your gaming comfort zone and try something new. Let's get to convincing. On our last episode, Ryan and I underwent a bit of a challenge round and talked about the games Redfall and Forspoken, two games that are pretty universally disliked in the current gaming sphere. One of those games seemed to be somewhat justified, as the player couldn't even, with a straight face, say that it was a fun game.
It.
The other
All right,
one, the other one
dude.
wasn't that bad outside of its writing. It doesn't
Dude.
matter. It happened. We're done.
Like,
Redfall. You said Redfall wasn't fun. You couldn't say Redfall was fun. You had to give it caveats. If it's a
it
game
was
that's not fun,
just.
then the game's not fun. It
It
is
was a
what it
lot of
is.
nothing. That was the issue. It was so much nothing.
And
So
nothing.
much nothing. Like,
And nothing
you
is not a lot of fun.
pushing buttons made things happen. So like,
Cool.
there are games that don't meet that bar. But like,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
probably not fun either.
as far as a fully like functioning game, I felt nothing. That's the issue.
Look, and you know what they say. You can't spell function without fun. Which it wasn't. So that's okay.
Unfunction.
Uh,
Dysfunction. Oh yeah.
Jeez. This week we're back to a bit of a more normal episode, but before that, I just want to say, for those of you listening, I did upload a TikTok today, which will now be, I guess, 9 days after this episode, or 9 days before this episode is coming out.
Yeah.
Um, Talking about a new impression I have of the Clair Obscure Expedition 33 story, world building, and ending. If you haven't finished it, please don't go watch it. Just bookmark it and save it for later. But if you have, please go give that a watch or a listen. I'm really interested to hear if anybody else feels the same way. If it was really obvious for you that the game was actually doing what it was, or if you completely outright disagree with me. This one seems very interesting, and I'd like to get it in front of as many people who are playing the game as possible. Strictly because I think what this game has done to the gaming industry as a whole is honestly quite impressive, and I think it's paved the way for a lot of very, very interesting things to come in the future. Not the least of which is that you can have a quality experience with incredible writing and music without a bloated budget. But I actually want to come back to that a little bit later today.
Maybe we just have a Clear Obscure segment every episode to just talk
Well,
about
no, because
something new for the game.
as of today, I have 100% completed the game, which means I will probably not be going back to it for some time. So I have very little else to discuss. What we do have things to discuss are games for this week. So I
Woo.
will be convincing you all to play Nine Souls, which is a game by Red Candle Games. Ryan will be convincing me and the rest of you to play Ender Lilies, Quietus of the Nights, which is just the worst title since Infinite Undiscovery.
Don't
And
hit the
that's
player.
okay.
And it is by Binary Haze Entertainment. And this game was their first game, and they have had two games since. One was Redemption Reapers, which I was very interested in. And when it released, the reception was less than positive. And then they have released, I believe it's released a sequel, I think called Ender Magnolias. I believe
I
is
think
what
that's
it
what you
is.
said, yes.
Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist is the sensically, I believe, the sequel to Ender Lily. So, haven't played it yet.
Ender Flowers, colon, nonsensical noun of the blank. Got it. With you.
It's just like
Let's
young
do it.
adult fantasy, dude. Like a blank of
You're
blank and
right.
blank.
You're so right.
It's
You're so right. Or blank blade, or blade of blank.
it works.
You're
It
so
works
right.
100% of the time. It's ridiculous, and it's so ridiculous. In fact, it brings us to our question of the week because I don't know where this question came from, but it made my mind start running because you and I have essentially a Rolodex of gaming of gaming in our past, of gaming
Hmm.
things that we have done. And I was curious, because I know mine, what the most ridiculous exploit you've used in a game. It could either be something built into the game, although I guess it wouldn't really be an exploit then, or something that was that the game didn't intend for you to do. So I'll give you time to formulate what you want to say, because I've been sitting on this, because my answer immediately popped into my head, and the most ridiculous exploit I've ever used was the shield duplicate glitch in Tears of the Kingdom. So for those who don't know, you had the ability to shield ride, like ride on Link's shield. And there was a glitch that when you pause it at a certain time, I think you had to be mid shield ride, you could drop the item and it would drop the item in the world, but you would still have the item in your inventory. So you would basically exponentially increase any item of your choice because it didn't leave your inventory, but you dropped it to then pick it up. And so I use this for a multitude of things. The one thing that I think I used it the most for was to avoid the blight. The I forget what it was called, but it was a condition that lessened how many max hearts you could have, and it it was just so nice to not have to worry about it as much. Now, what I didn't do was completely break the game. Like, I didn't do it to the point where I didn't have to worry about it. And I know I didn't do that because by the time I reached the final boss, I only had like five. And you needed them for the final boss of the game. So, yeah, that's the one that stood out to me. And Darren, I want you to go next, but I have something, and I'm gonna wonder if it crossed your mind after I bring it up. But please, what is the most ridiculous exploit you've used?
Okay. So I'm gonna give an honorable mention to Missing No from Pokemon Red and Blue
Ooh,
and the Encounter Mew glitch from Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Because I did utilize both of those kind of not so much when I was a kid, because the access to that type of information wasn't
it was
really
playground.
that. Yeah, it was playground. You had to know a guy, and then you had to have them show you, because everybody and their mother had some story of how you could encounter Mew, and none of them were real.
Under
Like
the
you can
truck
swim,
or
you can
whatever.
go, you can go back to the SSN and it's sunken, and you can find a Mew there inside of a box in a crate in the back. No, you can't. None of that's real. Oh, you can lift this. There's this under this truck, and Mew comes out underneath this truck. No, it doesn't. It's no. But there is a glitch to
Those were
encounter.
the
So
days.
honorable mention to the jank that was Pokemon Red and Blue, and to a lesser extent Yellow, because Game Boy and Game Boy Color games were a whole, well, I guess, 8-bit adventure of their own. But the uh, the gold standard of these for me are the Bethesda games, of course.
Yeah.
And so again, sub honorable mention to Starfield, when you used to be able to crouch and access the vendor chest in the middle of the cities,
It's always merchants
to
in
pretty
a,
much have absolutely.
it's always
and
merchants in
and so
Bethesda games.
that's actually what I'm coming back to, is of course the Skyforge merchant chest
Yeah.
in Whiterun. And it's not necessarily ridiculous because of what it is. Because, I mean, as you just said, accessing vendor chests in Bethesda games it's the jank we expect, it's the jank we require. What's ridiculous about it is the sheer volume of time that I would spend doing it.
So
And so, of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that I would spend, or that I have spent playing Skyrim, I promise you that I have probably spent total across every character that I've ever made, probably somewhere between 50 and 100 hours across every character on every platform, doing specifically this glitch, because it would allow me to get materials so that I could either increase my enchanting or my smithing. I could get money, of course, which was great. Um, and then it would get me to a place where then I could reverse engineer and use what is probably actually the most ridiculous exploit, which is the exponential alchemy enchantment potion glitch, where you could basically create overflow stacks on by equipping and unequipping at certain orders your equipment and then crafting certain potions to basically exponentially or to create potions that did exponentially greater effects. So you could, with an iron bow and a single iron arrow that was enchanted, you could overflow it so hard that it didn't even register damage and the health bar didn't pop up and you could negate everything in the game. Um,
So
I've spent so many hours doing that
what
just because I
did
can.
what did the glitch entail? What did you have to do?
Okay, so if anyone at this point is unfamiliar with a 14-year-old game and an exploit that still works, you had to jump out of the city of Whiterun without technically leaving the city of Whiterun. So with this game, every time you'd enter or exit a city of this magnitude, so Solitude, Whiterun, Windhelm, I believe were the big ones. Um, a loading screen would happen and it would generate the city itself. But you could jump on a series of barrels and actually get out of Whiterun while still being considered inside of it, which would allow you to run halfway around the perimetry of the city, walk under a mountain, and end up right underneath the forge, right next to where the vendor chest was, where you could loot it, wait 2 in-game days, talk to the vendor again, which would repopulate the chest, and then do it all over again.
And you didn't get caught.
And
It was
you could
free.
get because it wasn't stealing; it was just a chest in the
Right.
game.
It was free game.
hmm The problem would then be when you probably make it to Whiterun conservatively somewhere between level 3 and 11, which means that your encumbrance is so low that when it's time to get out of the glitch, you had to slow walk yourself towards these stairs, and it's just the painstaking amount of time that it would take to then try to get to a merchant that you could sell everything to before mods were a thing where you could artificially increase merchant gold amounts, of course. It was a painstaking slog, which is kind of why I'm glad they never patched it out, because it's yes, it did, technically speaking, if you chose to utilize it, negate a lot of the game, but the amount of time you had to spend to do it was still kind of playing the game.
It's fair.
And so, with the amount of time I still ended up spending playing the game, it was. I mean, I don't know. I still think I had a great experience with it. Because, of course, that's also just for, weapons and bows and such. It doesn't do anything for your stick.
I'm curious. Had you beaten the game when you
Yeah.
was this post
Yeah.
beating the game when you like learned about it?
Yeah. My
So
first
then,
playthrough of Skyrim was pretty legitimate. Two-handed. I used two-handed battle axes for my first playthrough exclusively. That's just what I did. Tried to use magic or tried to use one-handed. I decided it was all too weak because, of course, my destruction and one-handed levels were so much lower than my two-handed.
I mean, yeah, dual wield.
Um,
If there's an opportunity to dual wield, I'm most likely doing it.
mm. And then, of course, came the Ogma Infinium glitch, where you could basically item duplicate the book that gave you +5 stats or +5 to like all of the skills of either combat, magic, or stealth, and you could just recycle that over and over. So you could max out every single skill perk, max out your level before you could go legendary in levels, do it all over again. So I mean, that was a fun playthrough of absolute
it's just
nuking everything known to man.
it's
It's
just
just
built-in
so
new game plus.
basically all that is to say, Skyrim and all of its jank, and not even necessarily because of what the exploits themselves were, strictly the amount of time that I've spent doing them, as though it's like grinding out levels in a game,
we
because that's effectively what it was.
we had winter break. Darren and I were both at school at the same school, same time, and we had winter break, and Darren was like, I'm not going anywhere. So I was like, bump it, man, come with me to my mom and dad's house. So he came, and I had a little mini TV in our living room that, in addition to a regular TV, and he bought his PS4 at that point,
Three.
three PS3 at that point. Bought it, plugged it into the little TV. I was playing on the big TV, and we were both playing Skyrim. And keep in mind, winter break is not short in college. It's a pretty decent
It's
length.
like 3 weeks. And I think what we probably spent somewhere between 8 and 14 hours a day playing Skyrim.
Just playing Skyrim. And
Yeah.
like that was what he did most of that time. So that, man, take me back. But we can talk a bit more about our games. So we talk about making games more.
Wait, there was another one you wanted to bring up. What was it?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So the one that I think both of us used a lot was a Borderlands gun.
Uh, the old evil smasher. You're
And
so right.
I want to do it quick because it wasn't my main thing that I did, but it was a glitch that the gun would explode. And I don't know what the original purpose was. The purpose of the gun to get stronger.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it would like explode, and that would indicate how strong your gun was getting. But you could basically glitch it out to the point where it was so strong, it would mow down anybody. And you had to do it, and you had to like find the right explosion to make sure that the explosion was the right amount of damage that you wanted. Because the bigger the explosion, the more damage your gun was want to do. But I think it was bugged out to the point where it didn't limit.
That wasn't what it was. The bug was that you could pass the damage increase to the other guns in your inventory. Because the gun
Oh,
itself
that's
wasn't
right.
particularly
That's right.
spectacular, but you could pass it to guns that were just sensational
And
and
you
exponentially increase their damage output, and it
It
was
was magnificent.
fantastic.
It was magnificent.
Oh my gosh.
But yes, so
Oh
X
no. And then don't forget General Knox's armory in Borderlands
uh
1.
where you could
Cool.
glitch out the
Drop through the
armory and
floor. Oh,
just a
take
free
everything.
reign. Um, so
Oh,
many exploits that are that not designed, but that make the game easier. And then we come to the game that I played this week. Ender Lilies Quietest of the Nights by Binary Haze Entertainment. As I said earlier, it was their first game, but when I looked up the company, they've had two games since, Redemption Reapers and Ender Magnolias. And this game is in the same vein as Hollow Knight,
mm,
in that it is a 2D platformer.
mm,
For those who, I don't know, we've talked about platformers, but basically think
mm-hmm.
Mario platformers. And it has combat, and it is, when I say similar to Hollow Knight, I say that because it is a 2D platformer with combat where it can get very, very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will, before I explain more about this game, let me tell you, if anybody here has ever played a FromSoft game or a FromSoft like, because I mean, yes, Souls like, sure, but I would say FromSoft epitomized what Souls likes are. And
Considering they made Souls, yes, I would agree.
yes, shut up. But the thing about Souls likes is there's a sense of accomplishment, but there's that middle in between. Oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And oh my gosh, I did it. Where there's like that period of I want to break something near me right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And this game had that. And
Oh, before you get into that, non-related question.
oh,
What rage do you think was greater? The Souls-like difficulty rage or the why did that camper shoot me when I shot him first online Call of Duty rage?
there's something. Okay, okay.
Because they're different, but like the unhealthy degree of it's got to be.
Let me tell you something. Darren and I have me. I think a bit more recently than Darren, but Darren and I have recently tried Call of Duty again. Like I think maybe a couple Call of Duties. I don't even remember which one it was because I stopped caring.
Ad-
I
Advanced,
used
maybe Ghosts.
Ghost is PS4, bro. There's been like 5
Oh
Call of
yeah,
Duty since.
but I think that's the last one I have played. Was either
Oh, okay.
Advanced or Ghost.
Okay, so fair enough. So yes, I it was whatever was before Black Ops 6. I don't remember. But I used to have the patience at Modern Warfare all the way up through Call of Duty Black Ops 2, where I could play and there were people better than me, and I'd be like, man, dang, bad game, that sucks. I'm mad. Whatever. I'm gonna keep playing because I'm gonna get better. Great, and it was so enjoyable. Specifically, the Modern Warfare. There's something about that time period, but I used to be able to handle losing. I get on now, and the first time I get shot, I am immediately tilted. I am so angry, so fast, and I don't want to play anymore because I get so mad so fast because I think part of it is I know I'll never I'm never gonna put in the time to be that good. The worst part is you had friends like the friend I'm talking about who averaged like a 2.0 kill death ratio or 3 or whatever stupid number it was, and I'm just like what am I doing wrong? I've been playing games pretty much my entire life and I suck at this game. Why? So I think there is an immediate like I'm angry that just I get tilted and crash out immediately with Call of Duty. Souls likes I go in knowing there's going to be challenging things and it's a slow build up like a slow build up to that volcanic eruption of anger.
Hmm.
So one is immediate flip switch, I'm mad. The other one is like, all right, I know it's going to be hard. Okay, well that was that I dodged that. All right, well I parried that. All right, and then it just builds and builds and I get angry. But this game, I could have used a punching bag a couple of times. But I was on the phone with Darren when I beat one of the bosses and he heard the relief because it felt really good. So Ender Lilies. The game starts with a red ball of light speaking to a sleeping girl, which is your character. And the prologue tells you that something has happened to the world, but you don't know why. The world has fallen because of this blight, but like you don't know where it came from, why it's here, you don't really know. And this light transforms into this super dope hooded knight. Like this, he's if you look at artwork for the game, you'll see him because he's pretty predominantly displayed, and he asks you what you know of what's going on in the world, and you have no memory. This little white-haired girl in a white dress, and he asks you, he's like, let's go together. We'll find out what this is. So he disappears, and he's a little red ball floating around your character, and you're introduced to your attack. Now let me tell you something, Derek. I never thought that a 2D platforming game could have such a cool animation.
Hmm. Okay.
Square is the first attack you get because
Hmm.
the girl doesn't attack.
Hmm.
She sends her spirit forward. The hooded swordsman dude dashes out from her as a red spirited version of himself and slashes forward and then disappears. That's your regular attack. Is shooting out this summoned knight to attack in front of you.
So, are we talking like Smash Brothers Zelda?
Basically, with her knight, it's that, but quicker because Zelda has to like summon the pieces. But yeah, it's that. And so that is your basic attack. And when you get it, you see that it has the infinity symbol on it, which indicates to you that you can
You can
use it
do
as
it
many times
forever.
as you
Yeah.
want.
Hmm.
Which also, if you make an inference, tells you that you're going to get things that aren't.
Right.
So the controls are R1 switches your loadout, so you can have 3 spirits equipped at a time. Square, triangle, circle, X is jump. R1 switches between the 2 trios. R2 is your dodge. Her dodge threw me off because her
Mm.
dodge has a couple of iframes or invincibility frames or invulnerability frames. Basically, for those who don't know, it means that there are a couple of seconds, and by seconds I mean like milliseconds, where no matter what the enemy does, they can't hurt you. You're invulnerable. And so that's your dodge, but her dodge is she dives forward. She doesn't roll, she does a dive. And it took some getting used to. It did. But once you get used to it, you find the iframes and you can make it work. L1 is your heal. And like I said, X jumps. So it is the art style is very similar to Child of Light.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, Ubisoft made this engine. I think it was UB Art, UB Draw, UB Art, UB Art framework, and it was an engine designed for 2D animated games. And if you go look up Child of Light, it is a beautiful game. And this game is beautiful. There's beautiful piano music playing behind it so softly. When you get into combat, it picks up a little bit. And as you go through, you fight these zombie things, these blighted creatures, and they die in one hit. Pretty easy to kill. And you get to a checkpoint. You find out your checkpoints are literal places of rest. A bed, a bench, a chair. Literal places of rest. And when you rest, you restore health. You restore your health restores. And that's all you see when you first rest, because that's all you have access to. And so you arrive at the first boss, and you'd have to think the first boss is pretty simple, because all you have right now is one attack. That's it. So you pretty much have to just dodge, attack, dodge, attack. You have to kite. And this is your introduction to timing your dodges and learning your reach of your weapon. It's really well done to get you used to the mechanic that you have so far.
Mm-hmm.
And when you kill this first boss, you see the boss like descend to the ground and start with the art style. You can't really tell what's happening, but it looks like they're turning to stone. And then a button prompt appears that says purify. So you purify the boss, and guess what? You have a new summon. So when I
So you solo leveling your bosses?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so you get a new weapon slash spirit slash attack. And what's interesting is when you purify these bosses, you get a backstory of who they were.
Mm.
What were they doing here? What was their goal? What were they trying to do in this area? And let me tell you, they're concise, they're to the point. You're probably not looking at any longer than like 15, 20 seconds of a backstory for them, but it's in depth, and everything they say is what you need to hear. So now, every time you get a boss, you're going to learn about this boss, and it makes you connected to these spirits that you have to attack with. And I think there are I think what I saw, I can't remember if it was like an achievement I saw or like the codex or something, I can't remember, where I think there's around like 50 spirits in the game. And you can only have 6 equipped at a time because you can only change your spirits out when you get to a rest point. So you move on, and you start picking up these items that you have no use for. Eventually, you get to a bench, and you see that new things have unlocked: enhance, memories, spirits, and so memories show you cutscenes of spirits that you've gathered, like you can rewatch them, or they let you refight bosses that you've already fought. Pretty useful.
Why do you want to do that?
I never did because I was focused on pushing the story forward. But
Mm,
what I assume is it's for leveling. Now, leveling in this game is interesting because all it does is it slightly increases your damage, but not your
mm,
health. Because for at least, I didn't notice my health increasing. Granted, it could have been such a small amount that I didn't notice it. But you can increase your health bar by finding fragments that increase your health by 5 each time.
okay.
Your spirit's damage increase by getting these spirit items that you find around the world, and you have to really think about which spirits you want to use. And this is where there was a little bit of paralysis of choice, because obviously I want to choose the best spirit. I don't have all the spirits. So you're sitting there, do I make the spirit I have stronger so I can keep up with whatever it is I'm facing, or do I try and suck it up and make my way through it so that way I can have spirits to upgrade, or these items to upgrade spirits that I don't have yet. So it was a really challenging choice because you want to make sure that you're making the right choices. So for context, you each time you picked up these items, you got 10 of this item. The first level to level them up was 10. The next level to get them to level 3, it took 30. Once it's at level 3, it took 90. And so I never got anything past level 3. I think I had 2 at level 3, and everything was at either level 1 or 2 that I got. Because you
Wow.
don't find a ton of them. So you
Sure.
really gotta pick what you want to focus on. Then, as you proceed forward, you start getting relics, like slightly increased health, slightly increased spirit use, things like that. And so the
Mm,
system is that you have a certain amount of slots. So you started off with 2, but not 2 slots, 2 points basically. And certain
mm,
relics cost more points. So you have to find items that increase the amount of points that you can equip relics with. I got to the point where I had 3 points, so the first 2 relics you find are worth 1 and worth 2. So I was able to equip both of the things that I had found. So you really have to focus on what you're doing in this game. And I don't think there'd be any shame in looking up a guide because, like I said, it's similar to a Souls-like game where it almost felt to me like they wanted you to get help for builds. Because let's be honest, FromSoft games are community games. They're single player, yes, but there's a big focus on the community of the game.
sure.
Like
Absolutely.
there's nothing wrong with looking up, hey, I need help with this boss. What do I need to do? And people just tossing ideas at you, builds at you, items to find, things to use, strategies. Like that's encouraged because there's no way that you can know everything about this game. You can't discover everything about this game, or you can. That's not true. But I don't think you would be wrong for seeking help and strategy for this game.
Mm,
So you proceed with the story, and you continue purifying these creatures, and you learn a bit more about your character and how they came to be. And there's this church, this religion that came to be because of little girls. I believe it was girls similar to your character. And there was an enemy that was just on the map. And this is another thing that stood out to me. It looked like an enemy that I had fought a billion times. I walk up to it, a health bar appears. Like it wasn't a stage. It wasn't. There was no build up to it. It was just like, oh, you see that thing that looks like these other things you've been fighting? Yeah, go on and kill that thing if you want. And then health bar, and you get a spirit from it. The one thing that is nice is there's no punishment for dying, other than going back to the last rest point you were at, which isn't even a big deal then, because you can fast travel between all the rest points you found
Sure.
whenever you find a rest point.
Sure.
Um, and so yeah, I got I think like 4 bosses in. I wanted to play to the point where I feel like I got a good grasp on the game. And I feel like there's obviously more to discover. It's a Metroidvania. Like there's tons of places to go. You got overworld abilities. Like one of the bosses I killed gave me the ability to slam down on certain things in the world and open up new paths. You eventually get the ability to swim, and it's I mean, yeah, it's the same feeling a regular Metroidvania gives you, and it is nice to feel that sense of progression and get stuck on this boss and figure out a way to round it. And I was required to use all of the things at my disposal. I felt I had to switch out spirits, which I don't ever do. I feel like I tend to stick with the first thing I find that I like. And I don't normally switch out to try something new because I'm afraid that it's going to be weaker and I won't like it as much. I don't know, it's weird. But this game, I switched things out and I was able to beat a boss the first time I made this switch with my loadout. So it encourages you to do that.
Okay. Um, like difficulty on a scale of like, is it 2D or 3D? It's 2D, yeah.
It is, yeah, 2D. There's no
Okay.
other dimension.
So on a 2D scale of difficulty from like, I don't know, like a Mario game to like extreme runs of Hollow Knight, where would you put it?
So I don't know that I'm the best to answer this because historically 2Ds aren't like my thing,
Mhm.
but I also only played it. I don't think I've played it far enough in that Hollow Knight to be able to truly know the
Okay.
difficulty of it. But as far as what people talk about, I would say like 75% Hollow Knight to Mario.
Mm.
Because like it, I was able to get through the map. There are definitely points of the map where you have so much stuff flying at you, and here this is a 2D platformer thing, but in Elden Ring or soft Souls likes, if you touch an enemy, unless it's designed that way, you touch an enemy, whatever. In this game, if you accidentally dodge into an enemy, you're gonna take damage.
Sure.
So distance is really important because you have to make sure that you're not going to dive head first into this dude's swing, which I did a couple of times.
Sure.
You
Okay.
mean you have to think, right? Like this girl, she's a priestess, and if you are a priestess, you're not going to be a fighter. So
True.
what does a dodge roll mean? You don't know how to dodge roll. I don't know how to dodge. If I dodge roll, bro, I'm never getting up again. So like it,
Yeah,
it
your knees
fit
wouldn't let you for sure.
it fit the aesthetic of the character you were playing.
Hmm. Okay. Music?
Pretty much mainly piano.
Fair.
Very nice, very very somber, and
Mm.
it fit the aesthetic because you learn that there's a constant rain outside, like an everlasting rain that's dangerous to everybody, and you don't know why, and so I like that there was a mystery to progressing forward because you the bosses when you beat them gave more context to that. You found notes around the world that expanded the lore of everything. Very Souls like.
So would you say that like the overall mood is similar then to like a game like I Am Setsuna?
Zion sets in a fairly dire and dour.
Yeah. From what I
It's
remember of it, yeah.
I mean things are blighted. Like think
Sure.
of a world that you've been in where like the blight is,
Okay.
which is pretty cliche, but you know what other
Sure.
words do you have for a blight?
Sure. Okay.
I would say the feeling it gave me was very almost reminiscent of like the dark parts of Tears of the Kingdom. Like how like the feeling that you have when
Mm,
dropping into the underworld of Tears of the Kingdom,
mm,
where you're surrounded
okay.
by blight and darkness. Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
I do recommend for because especially for you because you seem to be which honestly I'm only learning about this because of doing the show with you that you seem to be a fan of 2Ds and
It seems to be that that's the case. I think I'm learning that about myself through the show as well. I mean, I played some Hollow Knight, but I mean, there's always been other stuff to play, so I never got too into it.
yeah,
I own Child of Light, but I've never actually played any of it.
beautiful game.
Um, yeah, so I've heard. And I never played anything like Ori and the Blind Forest or
Another beautiful
any
sad
game of
game.
the ilk. Sure. Um, what is the platform that this is on?
I got it on PS Plus. Yes, PS Plus. Don't
Was it
think
a game that was released like as like a monthly game? Because I went and looked and I couldn't find it on any of like Games Pass or the PS Plus library or anything like that.
I got it on PS Plus. Like the
Was it
collection.
like the month? Was you sure it wasn't like a monthly free game?
Yeah, I don't think I own it. And yeah, it's place oh, it was a monthly game. It was a monthly game in August of 24.
The last year. Hmm.
Darn. Well, I here's the other thing. This goes into something we've been talking about. It's only 25.
Sure.
That's not bad. But yes, it was
Mm.
I guess I went through my collection and didn't realize that it wasn't the PlayStation Plus. It was one of the free
Just your
the
collection.
offerings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, I haven't been keeping up with my monthly game downloads until recently.
yeah. But I do
Well,
recommend it.
either way, I mean, it's definitely an interesting game. I guess in that context now, with that being said, given that Hollow Knight is free on Games Pass and I believe PlayStation Plus, and that Dead Cells exists, and all these other like similar-ish games, is there enough different about this that you would suggest like that this is worth going out of my way to spend money on when there's similar games that I can play that I don't have to spend money on?
It So I looked up. This is an interesting conversation because Hollow Knight is $15.
Mhm.
This
But
game
it's on
is
Games Pass complete edition.
yes, but what I'm saying as far as like paying for the game because it
Oh, sure.
will
Okay.
probably eventually leave Game Pass, right? Like there, who knows at what point somebody will listen to this episode? Who knows where the game won't be there anymore on Game Pass? I don't know.
Sure.
But seeing Hollow Knight for 15 and seeing this game for 25, I mean,
Is
it
that just relative to when they came out though? Because Hollow Knight's not a new game by any means. I want to
Ender
say it might have come out in like
Lilies
18, 19, maybe somewhere in that ballpark.
Ender Lilies released in 21. So, I mean, if you are somebody who's really into that genre, Metroidvania,
Hollow Knight
2D,
Hollow
Hollow Knight
Knight
likes.
released Hollow Knight released in 2017.
Okay, so then sure, fair enough. But if you are itching for a game like Hollow Knight, then yeah, I'd say absolutely give it a try. But I mean, it's always hard to justify playing a game when there are free options if you never played the one that is free.
Sure.
Just as a whole, especially when both are solid games.
Fun
Um,
fact. Dead Cells and Cuphead also came out in 2017.
just a year of 2D
That.
games. But yes, so with that said, are you convinced there?
I would have been if it wasn't something that wasn't readily available. because
Fair.
it sounded really good. The second that I realized, because let's be fair, right now if I have, like say I have $25, and that's what I allocate every month to my entertainment budget, I could do that, or I could save it for next month and just get Tainted Grail. And I can tell you outright which of those would have my priority right now. So, if not for the fact that that would have cost money, yes, I am convinced. The stipulation makes it a hard maybe,
Sure.
and maybe
That's
an
fair.
eventually. But it's not to say I'm not disinterested in the game by any sense. I'm simply, if I can't go download it right now, it's just something that will have to be in the back of my mind, and maybe I'll wait later.
Like wish list it, look for a sale or discount. Yeah, I
Basically,
get it.
yeah.
That's fair. And I believe that you were in the same genre, I think.
Ain't that something? So I went ahead and chose a 2D Metroidvania
What are the odds of that?
that just so happens to also be really hard.
Oh, is it?
It's okay. So before I get ahead of myself, so Nine Souls opens up with honestly a really captivating, very dark, kind of violent cutscene
Oh, I like violent.
where you see this anthropomorphic cat creature, one handed, hanging off the edge of a cliff, whole front split open, organs starting to hang out, and this red clad, like large hat, red sword, samurai looking figure standing over before, and with like you get a quick glimpse of the face. The face looks somewhat human before you see them, this cat creature, fall off the edge. And you see through just a series of images and a couple like bits of motion where the body is found by this young boy, blah blah blah, brought back to life. You begin having this conversation with an individual, and I might be massacring this name, but I think it's like Shonshon. The names are distinctively of Chinese, I want to say probably Mandarin
Okay.
spelling and pronunciation. So God knows that my pronunciation of that language does not exist. So you do your best with it. You find out your cat creature. That's who you're controlling. His name is Yi, Y-I. He is of a race known as the Solarians, and he is now being basically brought back to health by this young boy who is a member of the Ape Man race, who again looks distinctively human. And it's right before this festival. You go through, your basic traversal tutorial to help him get a flower. You find out that the boy who's been basically nursing you back to health over the last 2 years has been chosen to go and live with the gods. And it's this big deal. He wants this flower to be able to wear so during the ceremony he can wear the flower, and it gives him blessings to be able to go, knowing that he's not going to be able to come back because he's going to this new place. You fast forward, you get the flower, again, combat tutorials, blah, blah, blah. We'll come back to combat in a second. And we make it to this festival, and there's this one person in the village who seems strangely cynical of everything. And he's like, oh, well, the gods aren't real anyway. We're all just forsaken, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, all right, that dude's a downer. Let's fucking ray of sunshine this guy. Um, and you just keep going. Well, you make it to the festival, and there's three people mask clad. You can obviously see which one is the young boy by the flower that you helped him get. And these are the three people who were chosen to go and live with the gods, considered to be this big happy thing, whatever. You watch this first adult guy walk in, stands, this screen drops down around him, oddly technological, oddly futuristic for this reasonably like feudal Japan looking hand drawn 2D art style. And now you inject like think Chinese cyberpunk
Sick.
technology. Drops down, this thing drops down on the head, lifts him up and starts to take him away. And all of a sudden you see it spin real quick and his lifeless body drops to the ground, head still attached to the thing. and
Oh,
then the
that's
body drops down into this lift into this area below. You watch the next person do it, same thing happens. The boy walks up, same thing happens, goes, lifts him up, but as it's lifting him up, your cat jumps up, destroys the machine, hacks the terminal to go down to where the bodies are being brought, and you find out that these bodies are actually being sacrificed to effectively a meat grinder for these gods to use in body based experiments, thinking that the ape men just have the best bodies to be able to basically create human chimera type things that can then serve them blindly as soldiers. Dude, it got crazy dark super fast. And so now you're in your first dungeon and you're fighting your way through stuff. And so combat, right? Combat is X is your attack button, and that's pretty much it. You do have a dodge in the right trigger, but then you also have a parry, and you have parryable attacks and unparryable attacks. But you don't really parry per se, not in the way that you would think, where you can parry and opposite and like open up for a riposte. It's simply you just don't take any damage from these attacks, and then of course the unblockable ones you can't. So you have to either dash through them to get to the other side. There, as far as I could tell, was no iframes on your dash to
oh
get to the other side.
man.
So you're trying to go through it. If you don't time that well, you get absolutely punished. And these things do crazy damage. When I like the only think if this was 2D Sekiro, whereas Hollow Knight is a 2D Souls.
Oh no.
Yeah, so this whole game is punctuated by combat that is based on my absolute favorite thing, Ryan. My absolute favorite thing. Patience.
Oh yeah, no, you had a time. I already know you had a hard time.
Boy, let me tell you. And it's not to say like don't this the combat was actually it was pretty good. I just every time you die because you weren't patient, you get that like you respawn pretty quickly. But like it's your fault.
I
Like
feel
its
you.
attack patterns. I think there was only maybe one enemy that I came across in the amount of time that I played that I didn't feel like I maybe was high enough level for or ready for based on what I had, but I still probably could have figured it out because it's really just get good, be patient, learn the timing.
What
But that whole be patient thing is really just it's got to be like on the top of my list of those are my skills.
you're
I'm
so
like
good
the
at being
least.
patient.
I'm the least patient person on the planet,
What
and
what
so
are,
when I go ahead,
how does leveling work? You said right level. Like so what is that? What does that
so
look like?
okay, so when you fight things, you do gain experience. There's a in the upper left corner. There's a beating heart, and then a bar around the outside. And then when you defeat enemies, you also collect something. I believe it's called Jin, which effectively functions as your currency. So in this sense, your experience and your currency are two different things. However, when you die, you lose both. So you lose all of your progress to the next level, and you lose all of your gen.
Oh.
Now you can go and like if you make your way back to that area, the enemy that defeated you will be glowing in blue, so you know that you need to prioritize fighting and killing them, and then you get everything back exactly as it was. I didn't notice any like percentage losses or anything. If it was a boss like enemy, there's a little flower on the outside that before you enter the boss area,
That's
you
nice.
can get your stuff back so they don't force you to beat the boss to get your stuff back. But the amount of levels that I didn't get because then I would do something stupid and impatient on the way back to where it was, and some of those treks back to where your body was are not short.
You owe you the shame walk.
Oh, dude, the shame. It's the shame run because you try to do it as fast as you can to the point where I actually wasted one of my level ups on a thing where once you dash, if you just keep holding right trigger, you run faster to be able to traverse areas that you've been quicker. And I was dying so often that that just saved me so much time that instead of strengthening an ability, I chose to move faster to get back to where my body died because
It
I knew I was going to die more than I was going to get stronger.
It seems like there's a lot of style to it, like Flash almost.
Yes. But in the exact same way, it's kind of the opposite. Like it's on at its core, it's a very simple parry the parryable attacks, dodge the non-parryable attacks, attack in your openings, don't get greedy. In that way, it's almost like the timing of a classic like Demon Souls, where you might block or dodge, and then you might get two hits. If you try to take the third hit, you are going to get absolutely decimated by whatever comes next. The nice thing is you can be in the middle of your attack animation and still parry. So I didn't get a ton of like cancel interrupts that I needed to worry about. Maybe that's just the benefit of it being a modern game. But so in that way, the combat, if not for the fact that I'm impatient, I don't think it would have been as hard for me as it was, but it was very difficult. Um, as you make your way through, you end up encountering a place called the Pavilion, which effectively becomes your home base. And throughout the dungeons that you find, you get these rest point equivalents, right? They're called roots.
Hmm.
From the root, you can fast travel back to the pavilion, like bring back items, sell stuff. You can buy these like plugins basically for your system that are the same as like talismans or rings, which gives you buffs to certain damages, buffs to resistance types, things like that. But you can only slot so many of them, and
Right.
like some of them are worth one slot, some of them are worth two slots. So
Hey,
you have to figure out how you want to build stuff. Um, but then from the pavilion, you can fast travel back to the route that you came from, so
what
they don't make you do all of
as
that.
far as like enhancements, upgrading, like what are you
So,
looking at?
so most of the ability upgrades come from the skill tree. Acquiring new abilities, you end up getting transported to like this weird, almost pocket dimension. Is the best way I can think of explaining it. I didn't play long enough to find out what it was, where you're almost training with elders who teach you other techniques that you can get. So sometimes those unblockable attacks will have a blue aura around them as well weapon. And if they have that, then you could jump on top of them. And there's this other ability you get called the Tai Chi kick, where you can bounce on top of them. And in some cases, that will actually break the enemy's weapon, so they don't have it anymore. You use that Tai Chi kick to basically like sonic bounce from one to the next to get to other platforms in order to gain access to new areas. You do get a ranged attack at some point. I did not that attack. Um, but I mean, at its core, it ends up playing exactly like most other Metroidvanias do. I will say it has a pretty compelling story, because without getting too much into it, you do find out that Yi is a Solarian. The Solarians were the prevalent race in that world, seem to have fallen from grace. You pass a lot of ancient technology that seems crazy advanced, but it's all dilapidated now. You get some backstory for some of the characters that you encounter. You're the human or the ape man that you end up saving comes and stays at the pavilion, and you can bring him gifts. So there's actually quite a bit of world building and storytelling to the game as well, which, for a classic Souls like that tells its story through item descriptions, it's a welcome change. Honestly, I found this a lot more narrative driven than some of the other 2D Metroidvanias that I've played of
Do
late.
you, do you think that based on what you said about the beginning of the game, so
Mhm.
the two games they made before this were both horror games, 2D horror games. Actually, 2D side scroller horror games. Go figure. Do
Mm.
you think that what they did with those helped them? Do you feel like there was some horror influence in some aspects of this, or do you think like this was like, dude, this is a complete tonal shift? Well done.
I don't know if I'll say horror, simply because at what point do you differentiate like dark and violent and traumatic from horror? Because there wasn't anything necessarily horrific in the sense of like Monster Death Beast Run, but what it was is it's more. think the difference between Friday the 13th or like Clockwork Orange, right? So it's a much more psychological based.
Mm, yeah.
What this is what you thought was going to happen. In reality, these people are getting absolutely decapitated in one of the most violent ways I can imagine. Like someone just twisting your dome off like a sprite is crazy to me.
I want to try the Sprite
Just to
tea.
watch your body like just. I mean, why didn't you just cram a Lipton in a bottle and make it happen anyway? That's basically all it is.
Yeah.
It was that trend from a few years ago.
But
But anyway, so I can't necessarily. I'm sure it helped them some as far as creating that dark atmosphere is concerned. But I think more of what this is. I did some digging. This game pulls a lot of its imagery from like Taoist mythologies, or
okay.
I don't want to call it religion mythology, but you know what I mean. So it's a lot of Taoist imagery with a cyberpunk spin, I think is the more accurate way to put this. But you have a cyberpunk Taoist tale made by people who seem to have a propensity and an affinity just for dark themes.
I mean, yeah,
So like
yeah.
thematically, this game is very, very interesting. My only issue with it is simply that the driving force to get from one bit of lore to the next bit of lore required so much patience, and I am not a patient man, especially when it comes to games like this. It's any wonder why I put as much time into Elden Ring, and it's not because I kept dying. It's because I actually got good at it. But I didn't honestly take the time to get good at this game in order to drive and push and learn.
Yeah.
Um, Especially because I mean, I've the last two games I've played also had parry mechanics. Also, like it got to feel honestly purely for luck of the draw. It got to be a bit samey for me, just because you go from Clair Obscure to Chris Tales back to Clair Obscure and now to another game that's kind of difficult and has complicated parry timings. I'm just like, all right, I've done this now.
You mean you don't
I
want to
just
do the
No, I really don't. I really don't. I wanted to just be able to. I kind of wanted a power fantasy, and maybe I would have gotten it at some point. But that doesn't take away from what this game is. And what this game is a very well told story, wrapped in a package that, unfortunately, one of the focal points of combat is simply something that does not speak to me as a player. Right? You tend to have a lot more patience for a lot of that than I do, which is why you progress through certain things just better than I do, because your type of like hyper focus could be on the timing of it and the cues, whereas mine is,
brute
why am
force?
I still fighting this same guy over and over? Why can't I just put my fist through its chest and move on? You know what I mean? So I honestly think in that sense you would probably really, really like it. Conversely, the game you played, giving a bunch of like build and ability swapping. I swap abilities like crazy. It's why I don't play fantasy football anymore, because I will tinker with my lineup from 1 hour to the next to think that I'm going to min max my production as a fantasy football owner, and I will drive myself crazy and lose sleep and wake up in the middle of the night when waiver wire time is to make sure I got my players. So I honestly think your game might speak to me in as much as I think my game might speak to you more.
Oh man,
Um, and I
that's
think it just kind
crazy.
of worked out. But even just the way the story is told, the way that the mechanics are, a lot of the traversal to it. This game, I honestly think, if you didn't necessarily have that pull to Hollow Knight, I think you would enjoy this game more than Hollow Knight.
The art style you said is like
It's
is
like Hollow Knight. Think it's like more Asian Hollow Knight, hand
I mean
drawn 2D,
okay,
sprite on world. Yeah.
okay, not pixelated.
Nope. Very clean. Very,
Nice,
very clean.
nice.
Really quite pretty, honestly. Insofar as you can do
I mean, Cyberpunk
dilapidated
Taoist is pretty.
Taoist cyberpunk.
I was gonna say it's pretty
It's
good.
creative. It's creative, man. The stuff that I was looking at, I was just like, man, that's really cool.
That's
That's
the best.
really cool.
That's the
You
best
find a
word
you
for it.
find you find a robot body with a fish bowl as a head and a koi fish. and the koi fish is what's talking to you.
Oh, it's like the freaking fish from American Dad, just on the body.
Yeah, except it has a body.
Is it voiced? Voiced. Holy cow! Is it voiced?
Not technically, no.
Is
Kind
it?
of
Was
like
it?
garbles.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Kind of like where as the text shows up and makes a noise, you get like a voice type file, like
How?
audio file playing at the same time. Kind of think what Undertale's voice
Mm,
acting was. You know what I mean? Like
Undertale. Like Animal Crossing.
right.
Well, yeah, no, I'm convinced to definitely give it a shot. But I think, as you and I have both said, we are in kind of a
Weird spot.
very rough spot because I just got Tainted Grail, um, and so I'm playing through that, and then I have Fuga 1 lined up, and most
Mhm.
likely 2, because summer's approaching. And for those who don't know, I work in the education field, which means I'm reaching a point where for about 2.5 months, I'm not making my regular paycheck. So I'm not really going to be buying too many new things. Um, but the thing about it is that I have so many things that I have lined up because I'm not going to be buying new things that my
Mhm.
time is like entirely spoken for. Um,
Conversely, I just got a new job where I only work a 4-day week. But when you just get a new job, your salary tends to reset. So I've got like all the time in the world and none of the means to get the things that I want right now. It's like that episode of Twilight Zone where the guy's the last man on Earth in the library, and the first thing that he does is pick up a book and break his glasses.
there
But there
was
was time
time
now.
now.
That's exactly it. Like I have so much time and none of the things that I want. Hence why I could, for the first time in my life, 100% a game willingly.
It also just
Oh
happens
God.
to be like your one of your favorite games of all time, but that helps. But you know,
But I haven't 100%ed any other of my favorite games of all time.
that's true. That's true.
None of them.
That's true.
Well,
I, I'm sure you've first 100%ed a game before trophies and achievements were a thing on like
yeah,
PS2.
I mean, Pokemon games, Kingdom Hearts
Yeah.
games, Final Fantasy X for
Have you
sure.
ever done full Pokedex?
Um, without a Game Shark, no.
Mm, fair enough.
But to be fair, the undertaking, I mean, in order to do that, you had to have friends who had the console and the opposite game and were willing to trade you stuff, and then you had to be able to have like the time and the means to go to like a GameStop exclusive distribution event for some legendaries. So like that was really hard to do for a long, long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But
no.
I am convinced at some point to install it and try it out. I hope it stays on Game Pass.
Yeah.
But we've now approached the segment where it's just like the hodgepodge of things. And I think since last week, I don't know that anything crazy has happened. But a thought.
Oh, oh, I disagree, sir. But you go ahead.
My
I
friend.
posted TikToks about this too.
Oh, oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
uh-huh,
yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So the thing,
Oh, the plot thickened too, but you go ahead.
oh no. Okay, so the thing that stood out to me, Darren, who's your favorite band of all time?
Linkin Park.
Mine as well. That was actually one of the things that Darren and I bonded over when we were, but we lads. And
Hmm.
so something occurred to me. I was re-listening to From Zero, their newest album.
Hmm.
I love the album. Hate Emily Armstrong all you want, whatever. I like art. I like the music. And
Hmm.
so it randomly occurred to me that I was listening that a decent amount of the songs in the album, I realized I know all the lyrics to these songs. When did I learn the lyrics to these songs? And I realized that as I've been listening to Linkin Park over the years, I never realize when I learn the lyrics for all of their songs. It just, like, there is a time after however many years of listening to it, where I sing all the words, and I'm like, when did I learn these? Because Linkin Park is one of the only bands that I have listened to consistently that I know all of the lyrics to like 95%. We don't talk about Hunting Party, but I know the lyrics to 95% of their entire disc. Also, again, not including like their extra EPs and the mixes and like their re-releases of certain things, like not that stuff, but mainline albums. I know all the lyrics, and I'm just like, when did that happen? Because when a new album comes out, I listen to it, and it feels like after listening to it like 3 or 4, maybe 5 times, I just know the lyrics all of a sudden, and I've never it's never made sense to me.
What's your favorite song from the new album?
Boy, Good Things Go is really good.
That's number 2 for me.
Up from the Bottom is a really fun time to sing to.
It's true, but that's a new song.
And you know
That's
what's
from the
crazy?
deluxe edition.
You know what's crazy?
You already
I
know the
know
words to it.
most of the lyrics. um, but no, the one that stood out to me on first listen was Stained.
Hmm,
I really like Stained. Why?
really?
What's Yeah, I thought Good Things Go was your favorite. What replaced it?
Oh no, it is Good Things Go. I'm sorry. And you said Good Things Go, and I was expecting you honestly to say Over Each Other.
Over Each Other's pretty good, but no, Stained.
Over Each Other is second for me by a distant second.
You don't like Casualty?
It, Casualty is the one song that I
It's the
absolutely hate.
it is the
It's
one
the
skip for
one.
me.
It's the one. They've always got one. That's the one.
Actually, no. All right. I will say it. I don't think Hybrid Theory has any skips. Hybrid Theory is
That's your
top
one.
to bottom, left to right. I will listen to it all the way through, all the way.
That is me with Living Things.
Sure. I mean, most of their albums, I'm front to backing them joints.
Yeah,
Like,
but there's always that one. Like there's always that one.
I'm let's see, cause yeah, no, like Meteora. Like, what are you skipping on Meteora?
Oh gosh.
Like, you don't skip anything on Meteora, man.
Um, I actually, what was it?
Like, Figure 09, Breaking the Habit, no. Nobody's
Okay,
Listening,
so
Session, Numb. Like, what are you skipping?
this is a hot take for people who love this album.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Somewhere I Belong.
God, no, that's my favorite song on the album.
Yeah. So
Or no, I get well, Breaking the Habit's my favorite song on the album.
Don't
Somewhere I
Stay.
Belong is second. I love Don't Stay. No, I don't like Hit the Floor, but I also really don't like Faint. I respect Faint. I respect Faint musically, but like for me, if I'm gonna listen to Yora, Faint to me feels out of place, and I don't really like it.
That's always
I
been the
don't.
case.
Yeah, that has always been the case. Don't not Don't Stay. I'm sorry. Hit the Floor as well. Um, but I mean, you look at it, it's because to me, Meteora is such a melodic, right? Like from beginning to end, melodic. Even Don't Stay, crazy melodic. Somewhere I Belong, easier. Lying from You, From the Inside. Nobody's Listening, which even that Nobody's Listening, I kind of go back and forth on.
Nobody's
Easier to
listening.
Run. Like all of those songs are so melodic. And then you get like the two blips of like what kind of was a weird transitional,
Hybrid
probably
Theory esque.
callbacks to
Yeah.
Hybrid Theory. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it just felt out of place relative to the version of the album that I wanted.
I looking at Minutes to Midnight. I think I could probably, if I were to pass one, maybe
It's
Bleed
Bleed It
It
Out.
Out.
Bleed It Out's a terrible song. Don't like it. Hate it.
You
Outright
know,
don't like it. Don't like it. Don't like No More Sorrow either. Don't like them.
No More Sorrow.
Yep.
No, no more sorrow. Um,
Well, that's kind of how it goes.
what are you skipping on 1,000 Suns?
Uh oh gosh. Hold on. because now
I
I'm
mean,
having to pull all of these up.
it's
So
it,
my problem with Thousand Suns is that the version of it that I always listen to is that when it came on the digital album, there was a song on it called "A Thousand Suns: The Complete Experience."
okay.
And so for
Oh,
me, I just listen, and that was the whole album as one track
right,
because
right,
that was
right.
one of those albums that had like interlude songs and a lot of speaking on it. Um, However, I don't like Wretches and Kings. I don't really like Robot Boy.
Oh, you didn't like Robot Boy because I think you had an issue with how repetitive it was. I think it was the issue.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Whereas then you get like Waiting for the End, which is one of my favorite songs of all
it's so
time.
good. It's
It's
so
it's
good,
incredible,
so good.
absolutely incredible. When They Come for Me is a great song. I
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's fair. But
But
yeah,
then
how
there's
about
Living Things, man. It's Living
it's
Things is a perfect album to me.
fair enough. But yeah, how about that for left field folks? Get Linkin Park talk on this video game
Woo!
podcast. But
Well,
yes, big
from things
video
that we
games.
liked to something that made me really angry.
Okay, so Borderlands. I'll set the scene, Darren, and I'll let you take over.
Oh yeah.
Borderlands is one of Darren's, if not Darren's favorite series. Granted, there's a couple of, you know, regrets. But as a whole, 1, 2, and 3, he loves. Darren, what's the issue?
Okay. So, it's no secret that there is some infighting in the industry relative to the prices of games at the moment. You get great titles that are releasing for sub $60 left, right, and center now. It almost feels like that's become commonplace where great titles are just like, hey, this is $50. And then everyone's like, oh my God, they're so profitable so fast. How'd they do that? Meanwhile, you're getting a $90 physical copy of Mario Kart
We
and
don't know that it's
wondering,
90 yet.
we
As
don't know that
far
it's
as
90
we
yet.
know, it is definitely 80. We don't know 90 yet. It's theorized, but
We know the digital one is 80.
yes, that's fair.
We
Although,
don't know anything about the physical, and they
yeah,
usually said, or they said that their physical is going to be potentially $10. So we know that it's 80 plus for Mario Kart, a game which will be as fun as it is until the day that it's not, and the day that it's not, you will put it down and never touch it again. Um, and so here comes Borderlands 4. And the CEO of Gearbox, Randy Pitchford, said recently that if you are a true fan of the Borderlands series, you will just figure it out. And
so
I
for
posted a TikTok about this because I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea of the CEO of a company backing his product and placing value in the product and believing that if I feel that this is an $80 product, that this is an $80 product and I will stand behind that with my whole heart. I'm not opposed to that, but that's not really what he did. Like it's what he did at its crux, but the words that he chose were basically like, "Hey, you don't if you really want to, eat, that's cool, but like Borderlands is here."
it's the moment he lost the credibility, well, the moment he lost the
Hmm.
audience was the moment he said, "If you're a true fan." That
Yeah.
he could have said, here's a really easy thing that you could say. Hey guys, I understand that you're upset about the pricing, but I truly believe that the technology and the game have are worth your $80 because of XYZ.
So
That fine.
the problem is now PAX East has happened
Okay.
and they did a panel
Okay.
and he was once again asked about the price. And at the end of the day, so he claims Randy does not know of Borderlands 4, even though the pre-orders will be available soon, TM, which is exactly what he said in the Q&A conference at PAX East. I have a hard time believing that the CEO knows that pre-orders will be live soon but doesn't. prices, but that's neither here nor there. But he then went on to rationalize why the game might be more. And of course, he said what everybody else is saying right now, oh, tariffs coming, so that's going to affect it. But then
Oh,
he decided to say, and Borderland 4's budget is double what our budget was for Borderlands 3. So let's stop right there. Borderlands 4 decides to double its budget from 3. Now, in theory, that's to give us this great experience, blah, 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 whatever, whatever. And maybe it will be. Maybe it will be incredible. Maybe they had to rebuild a ton of stuff. I don't know where the money goes. I simply know that he said the budget is double. Why is that my fault as a consumer? Why is that our fault as a fan base that you decided to quite literally double your budget for this product and now we have to pay, like, that's the justification for us spending more money because you decided that it should cost more money? When a studio of 30 people put together a game that is better and more impactful and more, like, just everything, more everything than a single Borderlands title has ever been,
yeah. It's it,
with
it
30 people, and probably based on projections, I think I saw that that would have meant that Borderlands 4's budget would have been somewhere between 300 and $400 million. Yeah, that's the face. Because that would
off
be roughly
what?
double. That would be double what Borderlands 3's budget was.
Off what?
Great question.
Are they doing a
Double.
new engine?
Double. I think it's Unreal 5. Double.
It's
So,
all right. We,
so
we we speak as two people who know literally zero about game development, right?
actual. But I do know a lot about business. And I fail to understand how let's just decide to have this project cost double with an inflated staff. Mind you, as I understand now, this I don't have absolutely confirmed. So, like, maybe this is true, maybe it isn't. But if this is true, the Gearbox studio and I think 2K as a whole has actually moved away from a lot of DEI incentives. And so they've now they're trying to move away from the fact that there's been a lot of brain rot in the gaming industry. Brain rot refers to a lot of people with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, a lot of talent in the game development are leaving the video game industry entirely and not training anybody to replace them, thereby leaving giant gaps in both ability and knowledge, aka brain rot relative to the video game industry. Um, but so there may be some brain rot issues that are being had at Gearbox now because of, like, DEI filled a bunch of positions allegedly that may or may not these people have may or may not have been as qualified as the people that they're replacing. I don't know. I'm not on that side of things. I'm not going to sit here and spit anything relative to knowledge about it. But, like, if that is the case, then if they're no longer following those incentives, that means that laid off staff, potentially tried to replace them with new staff. What are they just throwing money at people to try to get them to come back? Because I fail to understand why this game now is costing double what Borderlands 3 does, especially because Gearbox as a studio pre-sale by Embracer Group pissed away $300 million in the form of that god-awful movie. And
Yeah, I
so
don't
what are we now
understand.
trying to potentially, are we talking about like 6 to 700,000 or $6 to 700 million like bad project funding that is now being put on the back end of players? Because let's, if for Borderlands releases, Borderlands comes out with its base state of, like, you just get the game, right? And that tends to be the cost of whatever game. But if you want the version of the game, and then they usually have like super badass deluxe version or whatever that includes the season pass and, like, sometimes a couple other pieces of content like day one content type, that can sometimes cost $20 to $30
It's
more
their
than the
DLCs are
base version.
yeah.
Well, that's their remember. Once upon a time, their DLC almost be full length campaigns on their own. Now they've gotten less good. Um, Half of Borderlands 3s were okay. The other half were content in the technical, literal sense. Um, but now we're talking about adding another $20 to $30 for those editions that include the season's pass. So now you're expecting your fans, who you know, the Borderlands fans are going to be the only ones who have the higher versions of this game.
Yeah.
You're asking them to potentially spend between $100 and $120 for this
Certain
game.
certain people can get a week or two of groceries for that price.
Certain people, most people.
I mean, a hundred
I just I
dollars.
just bought I just bought groceries this like today for me and my fiance, and I spent $60 going to Aldi. Now,
Yeah,
part of that is because we already had some stuff that we needed. If I had to buy more meat, we'd probably be looking at like $100. But like that's a week's worth of groceries,
yeah. And he's saying, but if you're a
and
true
you're
fan,
telling me, and if I'm a true fan, well, I'm gonna figure it out.
as
I'm gonna eat
someone,
ramen. I'm gonna eat ramen for a month to justify Borderlands 4 costing double potentially what Borderlands 2 did.
yeah, it's
And I know
it's
2 is double 4, or 4 is double 2, excuse me, but like, come on, man.
and
And the
this
tone
is
deaf nature, like, and you look at his face the whole time during this PAX East thing, and you can tell he's trying to be so sincere and cover so much ass from these comments that he made. And it's crazy, man. It's crazy
I'm
that
I'm
that's the case.
I'm curious to see how Borderlands 4 is going to shake out. We will keep our ear to the ground and keep an eye out for what happens next in the saga of Gearbox, but
At
um
least we have Lost Soul Aside in August.
there's so much in August. Mafia, Lost Soul Aside, Metal Gear Solid Delta, and yes, Borderlands 4, which Darren is somebody who's going to play it because it's Borderlands and he's always down for more Borderlands. But, you know, what are you
The
going to do?
question becomes when, honestly.
If it's yeah, it depends on the pricing of it, man. Who knows? But we will cut it off here. Please stay tuned for next episode where I will be convincing you all and Darren to try Sayonara Wild Hearts by Simogo, a Swedish developer who, as when I looked up, the only game I was familiar with by them is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which I think is actually a game that I talked about when I talked about Blueprints, I think. I can't remember. I've talked about
Mm,
Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, and I'm totally blanking on who it was, but it is a game I want to try. But yes, that Sayonara Wild Hearts is what I will be convincing Darren to try.
I will be attempting to convince you all, plus Ryan, to play Eldest Souls, published by United Label, who also are responsible for games such as Tales of Iron 1 and 2, The Whiskers of Winter, and Roki.
Tales of Iron 1 and 2, I believe I've seen. Not familiar with Roki.
Roki is the one that I had seen. I'd never seen Tales of Iron
Huh.
1 or 2. They've also produced a game called Beyond Galaxyland, which I have heard of but have seen absolutely nothing of historically.
All right, and with that said, thank you for listening for to some of the
Huh.
rants and raving in this episode, and spending your time with us. We appreciate you all. Please follow us, Convince Me Gaming or Convince Me Media, and you'll find us. Please subscribe, leave reviews, send suggestions, and we will see you next time. So the question for you all is,
Are you convinced yet?
bye.